here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned. Immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the guitarist, vocalist and singer John Andrew Fredrick, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Obviously, he is the main man behind The Black Watch, who are now on their 26th studio album with the release of Varied Superstitions, which is going to be coming out at the end of February on Blue Matter Records. So you're going to find out more about that and much, much more. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the subject of how prolific John has been in the last 5 years. He's going to tell us more. John, over to you.
Yes, I think so. I think there maybe have been 6 or 7 since you and I spoke.
Yes.
Yes, Varied Superstitions, which is out March 2nd on Nick Solomon from the Bevis Frond, his label Blue Matter. And I think it's 300 purple vinyl copies and that many CDs as well. And Nick had a 7-inch of something that a guy, Stu Pope, very nice guy, had a 7-inch label, and he put it out and he sent it to Nick when Nick still had a record shop in Hastings. And so he heard about it, and I was a big fan of the Bevis Frond, all through the 90s, and kept up with them for the most part. And so as soon as I discovered, because I do a lot of research and networking and all that kind of stuff, just because we don't have a manager to do that sort of thing, I can do it. And so I started sending him some of our records, and there was one that he wanted to put out, but it was owned by the American label who'd given us some dosh to make it. So I said, I'll make one just for you. You're a hero to me. I'll record new songs and see what you think of them. There's no obligation, to him. Of course, he wasn't going to be necessarily obliged, but he's was enough of a fan, and so we've turned in this very varied and psychedelic record called Varied Superstitions, which is a pun on Very Superstitious, the Stevie Wonder, song. And so we're just really looking forward to it coming out in March.
Did you play in London last year as well?
Yeah. In September, I opened acoustic for the Frond, who were playing kind of semi-acoustic, quiet, stripped-down set with a quiet kit at the Betsey Trotwood, where I'd played, I think in 2001 or something. Just the memories came flooding back, and that's a great old pub. And so, that was a terrific show, and it because it was sold out, and Nick was very generous, gave me a nice cut of it, and I sold so many T-shirts and records here. In fact, I borrowed some T-shirts off of some of my English friends, just said I can't bring over all kinds of stuff. I didn't even bring a guitar because I leave a guitar with my friends Nev and Emily in Hampstead where they live, so I keep a guitar there just so I don't have to fly with one. So it all, and then I went down to Hastings to go to lunch and have a pint with Nick at the pub, and it was just 2 weeks of really sunny London. Such a rarity for September. But so it was just a terrific. I was maybe going to do an in-store somewhere. But that didn't materialize. But it didn't matter. It just seemed like such a sort of an indulgence to go, fly halfway around the world to do one show. But I got to catch up with all my friends and meet a whole bunch of great new people at the gig at the Betsey Trotwood and see the Bevis Frond. So it was a magical trip, and hopefully some booking agent will pick us up. Whether me just solo acoustic or the full band. I'd like nothing better than to have somebody else organize some gigs.
Yes. So you're now on Blue Matter Records. This is going to be quite a different label to what you had previously, Atom Records.
Mm-hmm.
So did you start when the project started? Was it September then you got the offer to do the album, and then you
I
thought,
think it
right,
was before. It was earlier than that. It was over the summer, and
right,
we'll still be on Atom in the because they don't deal with the digital. Nick and his financial partner Gary, they don't have to do with the Spotify and all the digital stuff. So Atom over in the States will take care of that, and then Atom's already given me the money for the next record, which is called The Fuzzy End of the Lollipop. Do you know that? Do you recognize that allusion? The
no,
film buff in you. It's from Some Like It Hot when Marilyn Monroe is on the train and she meets the Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon characters.
yes,
And she's drinking from a flask, and of course they're smitten by her, and they say, like her name's Sugar Cane, if you recall, like, Sugar, why are you drinking? And she goes, because I'm sad, I always get the fuzzy end of the lollipop. And I thought, that is such a great phrase. I've got to nick that somehow. So that's the title of the record that's coming later this year after Varied Superstitions is out.
yes. And this is your 26th studio album, which is
Yes.
quite amazing. So with this one, when you started writing it, were you working from any material that you'd already got in the sort of cupboard or the files, or was this all sort
Yeah.
of
There were some songs. It wasn't as though I was, I was thrust into some sort of tizzy or frenzy of writing, because I write pretty much every day like a poet would. Because I'm still enamored with writing songs and playing guitar. So that I had a number of songs, but it was just inspiring knowing that Nick really liked our stuff, and that I thought, well, I'm gonna just try to write the best songs that I can. I mean, I've always been the kind who grows up in public, or tries to. I mean, growing up, that's a euphemism really for less Peter Panish kind of people, or whatever. I don't know that I'm ever going to grow up proper, but just having just the work that we've done as a band, and David, I have great people around me, just wonderful musicians who add so much to what I do. In fact, on the record that's after Varied Superstitions, I only played just a bit of rhythm guitar, and Andy Creighton, the guitar player, played drums and bass, and arranged the strings, and played mellotron, and sang backups. So, I mean, it's just getting easier and easier, perhaps too easy sometimes, because in Los Angeles, there's so many people who have shed studios that sound just as good as the ones that I've worked at back in the 90s, when we used to have proper budgets and/or friends at these lavish studios. And these days you can make something in your bedroom that sounds, not maybe necessarily Abbey Road Studios, caliber, but up there.
yes.
And there are a lot of people who are just very keen to add their tuppence as well, and I try to surround myself with my friends, good friends, and people with eminent tastes who want to carry on this farce that is the Black Watch.
Well, it's been going for decades, hasn't it? You've
Yeah.
straddled a whole period of time. And this new album, I love the opening song, and it's quite an ambitious one, isn't it? It's over 7 minutes long, isn't it? It
Yeah, I
what
thought
it
I thought that
isn't.
would be, yeah, it is what it is, and I thought I like that phrase. It should be a bumper sticker, to counter all the people who use the bromide or cliche of "it is what it is." But I just thought, like, gosh, how bold it would be for us to open, because we're mostly known for 3-minute pop songs, fuzzy or jangly, catchy, meant to be singles kind of stuff. But we're great appreciators of the Pink Floyd and people who've stretched out their titles to longer lengths. So I thought, like, why not open up with a super epic, 7-minute psychedelic jam that takes you all over the shop. So yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
I'm glad you like like it. That's, I thought it was kind of cool to do that. And it sets, once again, perhaps setting us up for being a hard act to follow. 'Cause I think,
Well,
I
it's a
think that
great ball. It's a great opening track, and it just has a really
thank you.
nice sonic quality to it, which I thought was just awesome. And the whole album kind of romps away quite beautifully, actually, doesn't it? There's a lovely
Thank
song
you.
I like, "Living Backwards" as well, which is another great
That's one that
track.
Nick really likes, and my friend Bernard Yin, a lovely surfer and surf rock playing guy. Him and his wife, they came to the studio and helped me make that song. So it wasn't just the core of the band of Andy Campanella, Andy Creighton, Rob Campanella, and me. So we left some room just for some guests to come along, and just a nice flavor. And he shredded all over that. But yeah, Nick insisted that we got to have that record, that track high in the mix, because
High in
it
the
does.
mix, yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's
it
so
does spark.
where did you record the album? Did you have do you use a particular studio in
Yeah,
LA?
several. Each of the two of the four of us have studios. Not me. I don't touch any of the buttons, the faders, any of that kind of stuff. I did back in the '90s when you needed extra hands to mix things, but everything's so automated, and I don't encroach upon their sort of thing in the same way that I wouldn't wish for them to try to kibitz, in terms of my songwriting. I write these songs very deliberately, and I learn how to play them, and I just kind of go, that's the arrangement. You can add strings to this bit, but we're not doing 8 bars in the middle. This is 4 for this song or whatnot. It's almost tyrannical, I dare say, but it really just it emanates from my limitations as a musician. I'm a very rudimentary but solid rhythm guitar player. So I think that once again, one's limitations, can be used to advantage. But we did it at a place called at Rob Campanella's studio. It's called Figment Studios, and it's in the Hollywood Hills, up near the Hollywood sign. It's a modest house, but it's kind of underground, and there's a koi pond in the backyard, and it's very quiet up there. And Rob has a million Vox amps and all these, teardrop 12-string guitars and like a 60s dream of instruments, sitars and mellotrons and all that kind of stuff that those of us who love the 60s and psychedelic stuff, would want. And so that's where it was done.
Yes, no, it's got that
My
nice.
son came and played guitar and sang on it as well. Chandler has contributed to a number of records while he's not working on his own stuff, which I'm always encouraging him about. So it was a real love-in, of a record when great friends and the core of the band, all worked at the studio that we're quite used to and comfortable at. And I try to work very quickly as well, because I think that's an offshooting of the fact that we've never had budgets to sit around wasting time or having bull sessions or doing Fleetwood Mac amounts of drugs or any of that kind of thing,
or sort of a Brian Eno collaboration or anything like that.
Yeah. Of course, I revere Eno's first 4 records like you can imagine.
Do you ever use any kind of interest in like oblique strategies when you ever get any sort of creative blocks? Do you ever sort of have to sort of dig deep, or is it the case that you've always got things that you're working on?
I don't think I was contemplating that the other day, that I've had a couple nervous breakdowns after touring, but I've never they're dreadful. You'd never want one.
No, well, I'll try and avoid it.
Terrible, yeah. But I don't think I've ever had a creative writer's block. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm doing what Susan Sontag, called the typical American overproduction. I wonder about that as well. But I just keep trying to react against the record that's come before the record that's out and do something different. And it's all much of a muchness, though, David. It's all. We had an old bass player, Roger Butchers, used to say, John, you can capo the guitar any place and use your weird Nick Drake tunings, and it all ends up G C, D, occasional E minor anyway. So, dupe yourself all you want that you're, reinventing yourself with each new song or whatever, but it's still going to sound like the Black Watch. So,
Yes.
I don't know once again, no one stopped me from doing this stuff.
But there are some amazing albums that have just been slipping out lately. I mean, The Cure's latest album, which is probably a year or two old now, is just so evocative of sort of a period of time. And then there's a song called Your Clothes, Sir, which has a sort of certain fuzzy, vibey quality to it.
Yeah, that almost didn't go on the record. I don't know. It might have felt just too. I don't know what. It's not it is in our wheelhouse. Dreadful cliche, and in a way it's not as well. And the pun of "you're closer" in distance and "you're closer," and it was very inventive. Nothing, no one's ever said that to me, like "you're closer" or whatever. So it was very, a figment of one's imagination. But it's the more experimental side of. I'm glad you liked it. But I don't know how I feel about that song really.
Right. God.
Yeah.
What about there's two other ones, Phase and Jolly Melancholia.
Yeah, those two, because of their more overt nature, I suppose, appeal to me more than the "You're Closer." I almost left it off the record, but maybe again, we're hedging into the territory of asking, of the intentional fallacy of asking the artist to judge, and he or she's not necessarily at all the best judge of what of the dreadful word incoming product. I don't it's very hard for me to be objective about it. But yeah, a couple other people have mentioned that, like, oh, that's a trippy song, that's different for you, I really liked it. And I just go like, I don't think I understand it. So but it just goes to show you maybe the how artists can benefit for being in a mist or muddled about their own stuff. When people ask me, like, where do these things come from? I go like, I don't know, and I dare say I don't want to. It should remain a kind of a mystery.
Yes.
So I think that song is terribly mysterious.
Do you find you sort of almost channel lyrics? Music?
Yeah, I think so. I write a lot from the unconscious, or after I've smoked a spliff or two. They're about the same thing in a way.
Yes.
Or had a couple pints. You can take some Friday nights off from having some beer, but I can't do that, David.
No, well, absolutely. That would impinge my park run time if I did that, wouldn't it? So, do you have a bit of a Laurel Canyon vibe that you've created in LA?
I think that would be going too far in terms of I don't think that the people I work with and or associate with are necessarily of that kind of caliber. We're not, like, none of us is any Joni Mitchell or Neil Young or whatever. I mean, we'll forever be in love with their music, but it's like, it just puts me in mind of David Sylvian one time said, I think the idea of being a minor artist is quite appealing, and there's nothing, there's nothing to poo-poo about that notion. So I think I'm aware of the fact that I'm not one of those gods or goddesses of Laurel Canyon, but maybe it's a cabal of like-minded people who also have their own. Rob and Andy have their band. Andy Creighton has a band called The World Record that's very, very poppy, in love with Big Star, sort of. So we all have our own ambitions,
Yes.
in that respect. But yeah, we're not. It's not quite so Mandarin as those people. And that was a scene that's terribly romanticized as well, and maybe
Yes.
it should be. I never saw the film about that or anything, but people said it was interesting.
Well, yes, I'm sure it was. It looks good, doesn't it? And it probably had a 6-week sort of honeymoon period before it all sort of went south. But
Yeah.
all things happen. Because in a way, you came late to the party on being an indie pop band. Weren't you? Were you in your 30s when the Black Watch began?
Yeah, I think I think I started at 28. I'd finished my PhD dissertation on Ford Madox Ford and Virginia Woolf. And I had written songs since I was a little kid, and I tried to write I got 500 pages into my first novel, which was about the year I spent in England with my best friend before I went off to graduate school, and I realized, oh my God, this book is completely plotless. I tried to write a very comedic Dickensian kind of thing about my love of England and London in particular, and then. One of my students, when I carried on teaching at UCSB, started turning me on. I just discovered things like The Cure and the Sisters of Mercy, and this student, turned me on to the Chameleons and to the Mighty Lemon Drops and all kinds of bands. And he said, I'm a drummer, but I don't have anyone to play with. And I said, gosh, I've just started writing songs ambitiously again, and bought an electric guitar because I was a folkie. Had lessons from a hippie chick in the '60s, learning, Simon and Garfunkel and that kind of thing. And so we just started getting together, and I realized, gosh, it's so much easier to write 5 or 6 songs than to write one page of quasi Flaubertian prose, and agonizing over each sentence, which I still do, but enjoyably so because I've written so much now. And then, we recruited a bass player and another guitar player, and just started, doing gigs, and recorded the St. Valentine, the first record, in 1987, and put it out ourselves in '88. And just again, no one stopped me. I sent out some reviews, and I sent out some copies, and the reviews were really nice, and then I got divorced and moved to Los Angeles to find much more ambitious, not just college kind of musician types that were just playing more for a lark.
Yes.
So yeah, it's been quite some time. Yeah, the first record came out in 1988, and I just went back to Santa Barbara, to the university where I got my degree from and taught at, to do an acoustic show a couple of weekends ago. And this kid who knew the Black Watch really well and had done some shows just all about our quote unquote legacy, he goes, like, John, you realize it's been almost 40 years. I'm going. His name was Styles. I'm going, Styles, you didn't have to remind me of that.
So when did you meet the fabulous violinist? Is it, how do you pronounce her name?
Janet Jacoby, or
Yes.
Rod Stewart would say Jacoby. I found a bass player and a drummer in midtown Los Angeles, and the drummer had a shed, so we started rehearsing there. And one time after rehearsal, we heard this beautiful violining coming from the upstairs window, and Janet turned out to be, because I know that you've interviewed her as well.
Yes, I had to, because I was intrigued with this.
Yeah, no, she's an incredible musician. It was, she was in the Black Watch on and off, or mostly on, for 10 years, and we lived together, we dated for all that time, and had two horrible breakups. And just when she was trying to toggle between indie world and the big circus of the Rod Stewart thing, which made me physically ill in maybe a neurotic way. I couldn't stand that world, but she loved it. She was always meant for that because, she's a virtuoso. She's been playing since she was 2 years old, and she loved that world, and God bless her. And I found other people. I didn't think, I had a crisis then, thinking like, oh my God, Janet got so much attention, and I was a reluctant front person. I just thought, well, I'll just sing these songs because it'd be a terrible bore for me to teach them to people. But she came in, and she got in the 90s because she's beautiful, and it's novel to see somebody who's a classical violinist shredding all over these aggressive indie rock jangle things. And she played guitar beautifully as well. She's still one of my favorite guitar players I've ever had. I mean, she just look at on her fingers going, what's this chord? And she wouldn't know what it was. I'm going like, that's a D. And then she go, what's this chord? And I go like, I don't know. That's just too bizarre. Good for you. That sounds beautiful. She'd come up with such inventive guitar parts because of her violin
Right.
training. So, and she sang well, and, it was very hard to have a significant other in a band, especially an ambitious band like me. I remember you talked to her about this, of like, she'd said, well, yeah, John Andrew Fredrick is a very ambitious person. Like I used to take it so hard, back in the day, that was that lineup with Jana, just thinking like, why isn't it that we're not signed to Sire or et cetera, et cetera. And once again, careful what you wish for, because lots of my friends who ended up on major labels are too discouraged, or their records were shelved, I'm still here making music, and Jana's obviously gone on to have a fabulous career, and stuff. So things do really work out for the best as long as you've got, hope and perspective. Don't despair.
Yes, well, absolutely. But I was going to say, you do have to navigate the difficult periods, though, because you have honeymoon periods and then you have the tricky breakup period. Not, just the breakup, but, things change, don't they? I mean, there's been a lot of talk lately of Bowie and his 80s work, thinking, yeah, that wasn't great. His 90s work, and thinking, actually, that wasn't much better. But, he kept persevering. He had a go, didn't he? There were bits of magic. There was bits of experimentation. But, at the end of the day, it's an amazing body of work.
Precisely. Yeah, it's funny you should mention Bowie, because I just did a deep dive into the later records, and there are 2 or 3 songs on each of those things, like Heathen or Reality, that shine. So
Yes.
you can't expect everything to be hunky dory, pun intended.
No, it's good. That was very good.
But there's still Fall Dog Bombs the Moon on Realities. That's a really catchy, beautiful song. It could have gone on Ziggy Stardust. So God bless Bowie, and he went out with a bang as well. I think the final record, what, Black Star, was that the last one? Yeah,
It was, yes.
a lot of good things on that, and and you referenced Robert Smith. I think lots of people who are my more dour and cynical friends who might say like, oh, he never topped anything after Disintegration or whatever, to surprise those types, I would hope, to just go like, hey, have a load of this, because it's a solid 10 or 11 song record, and there's no clunker to be found.
Well, absolutely. And there was a lovely song.
I didn't know you were a Cure fan.
Well, they were always there, and I did love them. I was actually more of a Smiths fan, really. I suppose that was my main band. But dear old Morrissey is a bit more of a tricky character than Robert Smith, and in a lot of ways. But again, it was kind of interesting, because when I listened to the Robert Smith the Cure album, lyrically it was incredible. It's like had a purity and an honesty, and it emotionally connected. And there was a song, Never Can Say Something Goodbye, I think the title. It's about his brother dying. But I just noticed that he really has that clarity of feeling and spirit and language. And when I listen to Morrissey's later solo albums, I just find lyrically they're so clunky, and it's like, oh, that's not a great line compared to what he wrote in the 80s. And I often wonder, a person's emotional state must have, I don't know, there's a bitterness.
Color the output, yes.
It's sort of, there's a bitterness in his kind of lot of what he says, and I just wonder if it's kind of just made his personality the person that just can't get into that amazing moment of writing lyrics that you wanted to have tattooed on your arm or thigh. I don't know. When you listen to the latest single that came out, "Makeup Is a Lie," you don't. I'm not sure about this one, dear old Stephen. I don't know. Have you listened to it?
See, I've skirted that, David, because I haven't really stuck with Morrissey at all. Of course, I love the Smiths, as all the Smiths records, as much as I loved the Cure. I wasn't prejudiced one way or the other. I love them both, but I haven't followed Morrissey's. I don't think I've heard any of the records. Not Viva Hate is the one with Vinnie Riley plays on it.
That's
or whatever.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I just didn't. Without Johnny Marr, I just lost interest. And maybe that's a fault on my part, and I should go take a look at
have a deep dive.
Yeah, I should do.
Yes, and how did you I mean, musically, you noticed that, like from the '80s, we had that fantastic indie pop world, and you mentioned the Mighty Lemon Drops, and there was, like, the June Bright, and We've Got a Fuzz Box. There's a beautiful indie vibe to it, and then things changed as the '80s finished, and then '90s came along, and then we had these kind of solid rock rap bands, and we had it finished with Woodstock '99, didn't it, which sounded like a weekend in hell. How were you sort of navigating your '90s period?
By my fierce devotion to My Bloody Valentine. It's got to be the Beatles, and then second, the Pink Floyd down here, and then MBV right after the Pink Floyd. I wore those Isn't Anything and Strawberries and Wine and
Yes.
Loveless just to death, and opened up the eponymous MBV one with great fear and trembling, thinking, it's been so long. Because obviously Kevin Shields is a genius / mental case, in lots of ways. In a kind way, Kev, if you're listening, I love you to bits. But again, thinking, a little like with that same sort of tacit skepticism along the lines of hearing that Cure record. Just like, do they still have it? Is it just redundant somehow? But being pleasantly surprised, and if not, elated later on. So I got through the '90s by just kind of segueing from the jangle pop stuff into the shoegazy stuff of just getting into Swerve Driver and Ride, and all those bands were great inspirations. Still are, for me.
Yes, and what was it like when you were there was a particular album, Jiggery Pokery,
Hmm.
which you released 2002. What was the state of play with the band at that stage? Were you
Well, I mean, if the band was Jana and I was deep into another worshipful motif of my carrying on my love of XTC. So I think I discovered of course I'd played Skylarking to death and Black Sea and that, but the one that I'd left alone was Mummer. So I went back. I got deep into Mummer and the whole pastoral kind of motif. So Jiggery Pokery, mixed by a great Irish guy called Tim Boland, was much more just strings and acoustic guitar, some upbeat melodies. And Pat Fish was out in Los Angeles at that time, so he came and sang on a couple of those songs. But that one's kind of, it's a little trebly for me in comparison to some of the other things, and very folky, and
right?
lots of beautiful bits that Jana came up with, and writing string quartets. We'd done a residency at the Knitting Factory in Los Angeles with a string quartet, so we were at our most twee there for sure. And we just expected, going like, oh my God, we're going to play these songs with a string quartet. Who doesn't love a string quartet? And it was, maybe 25 people came each week, to a very small room. I think we were quite crestfallen, thinking we've gone to all this trouble for Jana to write these parts, and to hire these classical musicians who need parts. They can't improvise. She could, but they couldn't. And then for have it just to turn out, we just expected like, oh my God, we're going to be, we're going to shoot straight to the tippity top with this thing. Of course, it didn't happen. But looking back, it was a wonderful thing to have done. But yeah, I like a lot of the songs on Jiggery Pokery. And then we used a drum machine there because we didn't have a drummer on that one, and that's not my favorite thing, to have to use a drum machine at all. Even though I like bands that do that, like what's that? Young Marble Giants.
Right. Yes.
I like that motif, but I don't know that it really suited us. But it was once again that growing up in public sort of thing. Like, well, we don't have a drummer, but we've got technology on our side, and I've got these pretty songs, and Jana's written all this kind of stuff, and maybe maybe looking back, it did serve our turn to have that, rather than have the personality of a drummer, to mostly focus on the acoustic guitar and
Was that the last project album that you worked with Jana at that point.
Yeah. She we split up as a couple shortly after that, and then she moved out and was on the road all the time. And I think she bought a house in a different neighborhood, and then she moved to London. And so yeah, I mean, we didn't keep in touch hardly at all. Maybe every once in a while, just a friendly hi, hello. Didn't even run into each other more than maybe once or twice in 20 years. But she's very happy in that world, it seems. So good for her. And I'm really happy doing what I do because, after a period of time of me feeling like I was musically codependent, probably romantically codependent as well, of needing to get back up, to feeling like my songs are very much worth being worked on by musicians of equal caliber to Jana Jacoby.
Yes.
So that I mean, she's easily the most brilliant musician I've ever worked with, but there are other really good people that I've found. So, because I mean, there were certain friends that would just go like, "You don't need her, John," and I wouldn't believe them in a way. I just think like she's so dazzling. I wish she'd just be the front person and sing all the songs and let all the boys drool. And just I could just be the role that I wanted to be of just a songwriter. I'm a reluctant front person, really.
Yes. Well, it's nice that you had
that I don't care.
I was going to say it's nice you had Pat Fish on 2 of their tracks as well.
Yeah.
When did you first come about? When did you first meet Pat?
He had some friends of ours. We've had very few like bands we were chummy with because I'm so busy recording and creating all the time, and I feel like I'm a very friendly person, but there are not too many bands that I like in LA. Most as a recovering Anglophile, all the bands are in your neighborhood, not mine, that I like the most, and don't care who knows it. But we were friends with this band called Downy Mildew, which was very 4AD and kind of jangly, and they toured with the Jazz Butcher, and so Pat came over to just hang out with them, and we were good friends with them, and we opened for them, they opened for us, and so I just got to know him socially. And of course he, I gave him because he was a hero. Just in the 80s I loved Fish Go Tech, and later on Big Planet, Scary Planet, and all the earlier quirkier JBC records. And so we became fast friends. He was a well-read Oxonian, and with a giant vocabulary like mine, and good sense of humor, quite volatile sometimes if he was deep in his cups, like I alluded to before, give me a shellacking for liking tennis because that was too posh or whatever. But I went and stayed with him a couple times. We did some acoustic tours together. He ended up covering some of my songs. I know that he ripped off a song of ours called Terrific on the last Gentleman record that he did. He copped this melody from me, which is fine because I stole so much from him as well. And just kept in touch with him and played some really nice just acoustic gigs with him in Cambridge. And I think we went to Bury St Edmunds. That's as far east as I've come close to
wow,
March.
God, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was years ago now. That's as far. I've never made it to your shire. I don't think, unless it's Bury in
no, it's in Suffolk. No. Yes, but that would have been near John Peel, actually. That's
okay.
That kind of Bury St Edmunds, Stowmarket area. So yes, it was a bit of a shock when he passed away, but yes, I did an interview with him probably a year or so beforehand.
Did you?
He didn't seem too bad, but I was a bit like, oh God. And his last album was beautiful, actually. It really had a nice quality to it, but
yeah, it does.
Yes, a huge shame, really, when people like that disappear. But
yeah, I think he carried on smoking and drinking after he had a cancer, verdict.
Yes.
I just think he just wasn't willing to do that. I think he was in remission for a while, so it came as I'd just spoken to him via Facebook Messenger, just to wave hello and wish him well and have a chat about things and check up on him, because I loved him. I was just part of, actually, there was a camera crew over here about 2 months ago to interview me about my friendship with Pat, and a lot of people are in this documentary that's coming from these LA guys who are making one.
Are they making a film about Pat Fisher?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that. This is very exciting.
They say they're about 70% done.
Right, the Pat Fish film. Blimey, this is very exciting. So when you Jiggery Pokery ended, was the next album Very Mary Beth?
Yes.
Was that it? What was your process then? Sort of, because obviously you had to, shed a skin or two or something like that, and then start again.
That's give it a reptilian spin there, David.
Yeah, let's do that. Yes.
Well, this lizard reinvented himself somehow, or this snake, because I found two Irish guys. Tim Boland, a guy from Dublin, and his great friend Gary Sullivan was a drummer, and Tim ended up mixing Jiggery Pokery. So I said, he's a great guitar player as well. So I thought, okay, now you've entered into my world. Do you want to make another record with me, with Scott Taylor, who is the bass player and my old good friend as well? So the four of us made 3 records together: Very Mary Beth, Tatterdemalion, and the one that the Hypnotizing Sea, which only came out in the UK.
Right.
We found little labels to put that stuff out. And that lasted for that long. But I think Gary and Scott had his own band as well, very poppy Elvis Costello thing called Velouria. But Gary and Tim, they wanted to be able to chip in more ideas than I think that were allowed, given my aforementioned limitations, and so they went on to form something else, and then I found some other people to play with, a different lineup after that. So we had some good shows, and I like a lot of those records as well, and I'm still in touch with all those guys, great guys. So it's sort of like one of these motifs, like The Cure, where people come and go. Tim Boland came after all those years and played on The Fuzzy End of the Lollipop just the other month too, on a couple songs. So they're my friends first, and then if they get fed up being part of this obscure collective, and want to go away and do something else, of course that's the thing. Pat used to allude to the fact that he goes, you American musicians, you feel so territorial about the people you work with, saying you can't play with my drummer. I hate that phrase when somebody goes oh, have you met my bass player? What, do you own him? Is he in your indentured servant or whatever? But I think there's an English sensibility of, whoever's lying around, just like what the JBC was like, and who's a cool person and can contribute. Maybe we'll have you play on this record, or come and join the band for a while.
Yes. Well, I do remember a story about the Rolling Stones, didn't they? About Mick Jagger sort of talking about Charlie as his drummer, and I think he got punched in the face for saying that. So
I think Charlie didn't brook that. I think he said, no, au contraire, you're my singer, mate.
Yes, which is quite good. And these were mostly recorded up for Soundgarden Records, Stone Garden. So was that an LA label?
Yeah, it's an LA label run by one of my old tennis friends, David Steinhardt, who's still making music himself. But he was a guy who had a kind of he got bequeathed a mailing company by people he wasn't even related to. He was a salesperson, the story goes, and they died, a couple, and they left him this company that was worth millions. And he was just such an affable, supportive fan of the band. So a writer in his own right and lover of all this music that you and I like as well. But he's much more folky. He's got a band called the Furious Seasons. Give a little plug for David's band, which is very much, with his brother, is very much folkier than anything. He's gone very quiet in Americana. But he had a bunch of money, and he had a label, and he said, John, I've followed you for years. I'll put out your records. And so he just we never saw a royalty statement from him, but every once in a while he'd just give me $500, and he paid for my mobile phone for a while. Great guy. I think one of the catches was I had to be available to play tennis. He's a great tennis player. Play tennis with him at the drop of a hat, and I'm like, that's no detriment. I'll do that anyway, because he was such a good athlete. So yeah, Stone Garden put out a few records, and just didn't put a lot into promotion, and stuff, because that was more hemorrhaging of money to take out ads and hire PR people, which he did in part, but I think he got tired of tired of not recouping, because he signed a number of other people that just didn't sell anything at all. Yes. So I think we sold the most of anybody that he ever worked with, which wasn't that much, maybe 1,000 records at each pop. But we got to do what we wanted to do. This is one of the great candied things about my unstoried careers. I've gotten to do precisely what I wanted to do, and the price in that maybe is this 31 plus years of obscurity, to reference a best of that we put out. But at the same time, gosh, I've been very lucky to be able to do that and have supportive little labels, just go like, John, we don't want to see you, just fade away to four track land unless you want to, or whatever. So as long as people once again, the notion that I alluded to earlier of just nobody's stopping me.
So how did you get on putting that compilation of 31 years of obscurity, the best of? Did you, because you're on different label, did you keep your publishing?
Atom. That was Atom who started off with that. And Scott Kinnison, another guy who's quite well-to-do, and a music lover beyond, has something like 30,000 albums at his office in Dayton, Ohio, where Guided by Voices are from. I met him through Bandcamp, and he said, hey, I've been a follower for a long time. If you ever want to do a record, I have a little label in Ohio. And said, sure, we don't have one right now. Let's go. But he picked all the songs for that. I just thought, I'll relinquish creative control there, and you pick what you want to pick. And he likes the more up-tempo stuff and not as much the shoegazy kind of stuff. So I just let him do that, and that's kind of how our relationship started.
Yes. So when you came to doing the Ice and the Snow Queen, was this then another lineup change?
Yeah, that was another lineup change. It's not that interesting to talk about, I don't think. Then that was pre Atom Records. I think that might have been. We might have put that out ourselves, because thinking like, oh gosh, I don't have anybody to do it. I know how to do this. I put out our first record myself on Eskimo, so I think we did that. But just to carry on, just to keep momentum going.
Yes, it's an incredible. You. I suppose it was like bands like Motorhead or Marky Smith. It was like an album virtually every year or 18 months and a bit of a tour. So, did you enjoy touring at this stage, or did you ever enjoy?
I've always faked my. I'll put it this way. I'll be frightfully honest with you. That I've always kind of faked my way through playing live. Because it can go so awry sometimes. And being on the road, I had an occluded nerve. The last national tour in the States we did was, I think, 2015 or 16. And I came back and I had an occluded nerve, and I had double vision for about 3 months. I mean, it was a mini stroke, because the guitar player, Steve Schaer, and Scott Taylor, the bass player, they were best friends, and my best friends too, but they were just at each other the entire time. And when I came back, one day I woke up, I thought I was just very dehydrated, but I had an occluded nerve and had to go to the hospital, and I had double vision. I had to wear a patch over my eye. I carried on teaching at the university too. I just told the students, like, no pirate jokes, but I'm dedicated to my job. I'm going to soldier through this. So touring has taken its toll on me. I don't think we've ever really gotten to do. I booked 2 or 3 national tours myself. We've never had a good booking agent get us
Right.
pair us up with somebody. Nick is a very busy guy, but he's promised to try to find somebody to bring us over to do a tour in support of Varied Superstitions. We'll see if that happens. But at this stage, the guys in my band now, who, it'd be iffy if they could even go because they're grown-ups with kids and grown-up
Yes.
jobs and that kind of sort of thing. So I've had a love, not love, I won't say hate, relationship with touring and with playing live and stuff. I'm a studio guy, but I don't know. I've really enjoyed playing acoustic of late because I try to, I don't care anymore, David, in a way of, being anxious about stuff. I just think these are my songs. I'm going to crack a few jokes, make fun of myself. There was a time at the show in London where I hit a dreadfully wrong note, and I into the mic, I go, "There's something wrong with this guitar," and then just carried on just to incorporate a big mistake. And people were laughing so hard and slapping me on the back afterwards, going, "That was so entertaining," etc. And so, I think that I have a new attitude, which is, because I use so many weird tunings and, elaborate arrangements sometimes for the acoustic stuff, and the sound isn't always brilliant. But I think this attitude that I have now of just going like, I'm just going to go for it, and if it flops, I'll laugh along with everybody else as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's always good. I think when you show certain fear in those moments, the audience can get very anxious, thinking, "Oh my God, he or she isn't quite in control." Whereas actually, if you look completely relaxed with it, it kind of relaxes them as well, and you can sort of, yes, get a good energy or good vibe between each other. So that's good. So does that mean that you've always kept your day job, or certainly part of a day job during
Yeah.
this period?
Yes, I'm retired from teaching university English now. I've been retired for about 4 years, I think,
Right.
more. But and I teach tennis for children now, actually. So I have a very part-time job, and I love kids. I love tennis, and so it combines 2 of my great loves, and I get a little bit of extra dosh per week by doing maybe 2 sessions a week with children. But obviously I could leave that job easily and go and tour if any major booking agents or even minor booking agents are listening to your show.
Yes, well, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. I would love to come back to England and open for somebody, whether it was with the band or whether it was just me. But there's just so many bands these days. We'll see if it happens. But I love the record that that's coming out on Nick's label, and we'll see. There's already confirmed reviews in Shindig and Mojo. So we'll see if something happens. But
well, it will be fantastic. I mean, Shindig definitely is the go-to place, isn't it? Really for these.
Love them.
This moment. So just on that sort of going through chronologically then, your first album on Atom was Witches then. So was this kind of a momentous album that because this was with quite another lineup change, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was mostly me. There's a lot of acoustic stuff on that record, and a lot of atmospheric, like weird feedback, under the more acoustic guitar driven kind of songs, and I think it was just I don't know. I just thought once again I've iterated this before, that each record we do is kind of a reaction against the one that's come before, and I think the one that came before that might have been noisier or more electric, and I can't recall which. I can't keep straight, all of our discography. But so I don't know. It was just I'm a reconstituted folky anyway. I have my acoustic guitar right next to me. I'm always ready with a capo and some strange tunings, and I keep on writing. So some batches of songs just seem like, okay, those will go together kind of well as more acoustic things that don't need the full band for these. And then once I do that, I'll go like, I really miss kicking up a fuss.
Yes. With your folk interest, was it English folk, like as in singer-songwriters, people like Nick Drake or Burt Jansch or
Only
Richard
later.
Thompson?
Only later,
right?
Like in the heyday of that kind of stuff, and when I was a kid and playing guitar, it was the Beatles quieter stuff, and then some the stuff like Donovan or Simon and Garfunkel. But I only discovered, things like Fairport later in life, maybe the last, 10 years that
Right.
I didn't know about all of that kind of stuff. I was more,
So albums like I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, Richard and Linda Thompson, have they only just appeared on your sort of radar quite
yeah,
recently?
yeah, absolutely. Along with Fairport. Yeah, I came to them very, very, very late.
God, yes, and
Yeah.
sort of other
But of
singers.
course, like Nick Drake, Sid Barrett. Of course I knew them. Like in the '90s. I got turned on to that kind of stuff. But that could even be considered kind of late,
Well,
as
yes.
well. But I didn't even know about gosh, who's Kevin Ayers or anything until about 4 years ago or so. So, I just started obsessing with Joy of a Toy, that long ago. So that just kind of goes to show you that even boffins, who pretend to know music, there's levels of that. There's always something new to discover. Like
Yes.
I've been so unaware of that. What was Kevin Ayers' band called again?
That's the Canterbury scene, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I think of Soft Machine, and then I think
Soft
of,
Machine. Yeah,
was
Soft
it
Machine.
with Robert Wyatt and people like that,
Yeah.
and I think there was a band called Gong, but I don't know if they were that part of that scene as well. I don't know, but there was Hatfield and the North, I think, as well, and then there was a bit of an '80s indie scene as well in that area, or was it a different place? I don't know. It's south of London. It had people like the Dentists. I don't know if you've ever come across the band called
Yes,
the
of
Dentists.
course. Yeah, Luann Williams, who put out a couple of records on her thing, Pop Culture Press. She's really good friends with the Dentist, and my son picked me up to go to the tennis courts the other day, and he had a Dentist CD in his car. So I didn't know that he knew them as well. But yeah, I had a couple cassettes by them before. Very very cool band, all out of the wedding present. Very rushing, jangly stuff. Love the Dentist. They're great.
Yes. Have you ever, I mean, you must have noticed in the last few years, last 5, 6 years, lots of people writing books, memoirs. There's obviously films being made, exhibitions happening. Have you been curious to or interested documenting your own creative journey at all? Has that sort of
Well, I
been?
mean, they've creeped into the King of Good Intentions novels, because those are about a fictitious band called the Weird Sisters that was in the '90s. So I think I've kind of, I mean, they're quasi autobiographical, I can say, but some people accuse me of just going, "Oh, that's your autobiography," and I go, "Well, you don't know that much about writing fiction." So I think I've kind of done that, and maybe that's for someone else to do. I don't know that I'm, that I've made that much of a mark that I can warrant. I mean, it's an interesting story and stuff, but I think I've kind of told it peripherally in my novel.
Right. Have you been, having taught English in an American university, do you visit lots of graves when you come to England, famous writers or areas?
Well,
Or...
you kind of can't avoid them if you're walking around Hampstead, where my friends live. Kind of, sort of every church has got some. But no, I'm not. I'm not that much of an Edward Gorey, or Mervyn Peake kind of ghoul. None gloomier than that sort of thing. No, I do like a graveyard, maybe not as much as a Morrissey. But yeah, sure, of course. I'm busy when I go to London, or any place in England. I'm really mostly busy going to churches. I love going to churches, and to bookstores,
Right.
bookshops everywhere. I was greatly chastised by my friend Emily, but she just goes, "John, why do you buy all these books?" Because they have beautiful covers that we don't only rarely see. Like all the Penguin editions are different for the UK, and they're so cheap. Just in the dollar. The last couple times I've been over, the dollar's done really well, and so I
Right.
end up just jettisoning clothes to bring back books.
Well, that's a good idea, actually. Yes. What part of your English literature were you teaching? Was there a particular period of English literature?
No, it was more a general introduction, and first and second year English literature classes, like introduction to writing and to reading. So I loved to teach poetry, but I'd have classes where I'd teach a novel or two as well. But just trying to give the kids a survey of poetry and trying to sort of engender in them a love of it. The first thing I'd ask them is like, how many of you hate poetry? Just be honest with me. And half the class would raise their hands. And I said, well, how many of you know very much, do you think, about poetry? And most of the hands would go down. So I go like, well, basically you guys are bigots then, because you hate something you don't know anything about. And then I said, I'm going to show you. So I'd give them a Philip Larkin poem, like
The Whitsun Wedding.
or the one the one
Parents.
so, yeah, like they fuck you up, your mom and dad, and just to kind of shock them into going like, this is a poem. It uses the F word or whatever, and do my song and dance and my very best to try to get them to see like there's such beauty and feeling in this, and you guys are going to be changed, ostensibly, one hopes, by my helping you, teaching you how to read a poem. So I mean, that's people ask me, do you miss being a professor? I don't miss the politics. I'm not a joiner. I would rarely go to the faculty meetings, et cetera, et cetera. But the turning people on to great art. I used to teach writing about film too. So, show these kids, classic films. And I ended up writing a book on early Wes Anderson films, use my notes, to help them just try to open them up to like seeing more than they thought they could see in a work of art. So, and sometimes I'd incorporate music into that. Every once in a while, I'd bring in, maybe 10 records and turn them onto the Darude column, or to Sonic Youth if they didn't know them already, and just go like, I wonder if you've ever heard anything like this, you guys, and like, just want to expose you to it. We'll take a break from this, and maybe you can write in a journal, about it. So yeah, I did some touchy-feely kind of stuff as well as being a hickory stick of a hard-ass professor. But every once in a while, I'd do something that was very, very sentimental-ish.
Well, it's nice, and no, it's nice because I think, was it Marilyn Monroe used to, when she signed into hotels, called herself Sugarcane, didn't she? Which was a song that Sonic Youth included on one of their 90s albums, I believe, which was quite interesting. So so when you gave up or quit or finished teaching or lecturing, was that quite a big thing in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it, and I hated it at the same time because everything became so grimly politically correct. Because as you can maybe imagine from having spoken to me and known the records, and thank you very much for this. I was very excited to talk to you this time because it had been a number of albums since we got to say hello. But you can imagine that I ruffled some feathers. It'd be quite a flamboyant professor and say outrageous things sometimes to get a reaction to them. But in this milieu and this zeitgeist, that that's not that wasn't going to fly much longer. The generationally, kids are so much more cosseted now, and sort of like there's a tattletale mentality. If they're looking at each other, some in some demographics, to see if somebody's saying something that's potentially not politically correct. And so it was high time that I got out, because I didn't go to university for 9 years and get a PhD to watch everything I say. I came there to stimulate and provoke, I thought. Gently, because I, love the students, and that was one of my, favorite things about getting to know them, in the same way that I fell in love with some of my professors who taught English Lit when I was a grad student and an undergrad. So I don't miss any of the politics, but I certainly do miss talking about literature for money. And my son majored in English, but an emphasis in critical theory. So he never got a chance in college to explicate a poem, even though he's a high school English teacher now. And so he'd never read Chaucer in Middle English. So over the pandemic, he was living in New York. Now, thankfully, he's on the right coast here in LA. Throughout the pandemic, I taught him how to read the Canterbury Tales, and we'd read them to each other and explicate those, because he's a really challenged, very bright kid. And so I got to teach a little bit to my own son and turn him on to something that he missed. I would think, like, you majored in English and you didn't read the Canterbury Tales and you only read 2 Shakespeare plays because there was this, push to be more inclusive, to have diversity and, writers of color and that kind of thing. And so the core Milton, Shakespeare, Chaucer kind of thing is kind of, in certain programs has sort of gone away. So I got to carry on teaching, with my own kid who's fell in love with Chaucer and now just goes like, can we go on to Spenser's The Fairy Queen now? Like, okay, whoa, yeah, that's a task, but yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do
so
it.
just so during the COVID period, then what was it like for you as a academic and a writer and about a musician? Did that sort of freak you out, or did that stimulate you to sort of get even more creative at that stage?
Yeah, I think by nature, even though I consider myself a clubbable, affable person who's friendly and who likes to do anything to make people laugh, I'm not necessarily all that social. I live in the hippest. If I see another, gaggle of girls who think that Coachella's still going on right now, or a 12-year-old kid with a beard down to here and a septum nose ring in my neighborhood swing a dead armadillo and, hit him, like I live in the most hipster neighborhood in all of LA. So I feel like a bit of a pariah there because, I'm a mad artist, obviously, but I'm still pretty kind of traditional. So, all the bars around here are just, very different to the LA that I when I was more social. So when the pandemic hit, I just thought, right, this is great. So I'm just gonna hang out and write more than ever, and just have Zooms and Facebook FaceTime with people as well to keep in touch. But I thrived. I was fine with it. It's not like I'm this agoraphobic person or anything, but I didn't miss the whole going out kind of thing at all.
No.
Yeah.
Because on you released a record on A Turntable Friend, Brilliant Failures. Was this new material that you'd put together?
Yeah.
God, that was very impressive. Did they come into because I love that label. Did they sort of contact you and say, have you got anything for us?
I had sent Ulrich, great guy. I think he lives in both Germany and Liverpool. I think he's based there. But he, shortly after the Brilliant Failures came out, he decided to fold the label after all this time. But I'd followed them. I'd been fans of all those bands. But I think I'd sent him various tracks or full records in the past, just to familiarize him, the same way that I did with Nick Solomon, to make him familiar with the band. And he really deliberated over whether he was going to put that record out. He's very particular, and bless him, for being like that. But it was sort of like, okay, I like this. Let me get more used to it. I'm not sure it fits in. With that, I'm thinking like, oh my God, it fits in so well with the rest of A Turntable Friend. How could it not? It's melody oriented, it's guitar oriented, it's a little bit, jangly, a little bit fuzzy, etc. And so finally he said, he left me, in suspended animation over that for a while. And then he said, okay, finally, let's do it. And then he had a family catastrophe, I think, with a nephew or something. And he almost didn't put it out then. He said, we've had this crisis in our family. And then he pulled his way through that. And then he put out that record. And I think he quit shortly after that.
Right.
But yeah, it's a great label. I mean, it's like Cherry Red or Creation. Like the labels, it's hard for them just as it's hard for bands to carry on. Unless you discover, or even if you just do discover a million seller or something like that. It's exhausting to fight this fight. So there's no, God bless him for working with us and carrying on as long as he did. But if it wasn't feasible anymore, that's great. But we were thrilled to be there, and label recognition plays a big part in the indie world too. There's certain snobs that just want to, just like, oh, this is on Slumberland or whatever, and they'll dig it, just because it's on that label. So I mean, that's not how I operate at all. But I know the importance of that, of label recognition. And when I'd announced that we were going to be on the Bevis Frond label for this next record, people were very excited on my behalf. laugh and going like, it's still the same band. The label doesn't really matter that much unless they've got tons of money to take out adverts and hire expensive PR people and radio people and all that kind of stuff. But Nick is such a cool guy and such a vet that, you know, the marquee value of his name has been kind of nice. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. I'm sure Stuart Lee will probably get to review it because he's always, I don't know if you've come across the comedian Stuart Lee, but
yes, I know.
But I know. I think he's a big fan of Nick Solomon.
Yeah, so I just saw that he's going to open some of the shows on their UK tour.
So you got 300 on this new album, 300 purple vinyl albums going out. So is that going to be distributed from the UK or?
I think, he uses Cargo.
Right,
UK.
so that'll be that, and then 300 CDs, and then digital downloads as well. So, yes, do you mostly have a vinyl option for all your releases?
Yeah, because Adam Scott Kinnison, who runs Atom, the one in Dayton, he's a vinyl head, so he insists that we put out vinyl records because it's only been the last 5 or 6 albums that that have seen a vinyl release. And I'm not a fetishist about the thing. I have a small I used to have a big collection, but I sold a number of my vinyl records and stuff because it's just so bloody easy just to haul things up on YouTube these days. I'm so lazy. You can see behind me, a wall of CDs, and I don't even touch them anymore. There are 1,000 CDs, and I rarely play them. It's so weird. That's a format that I still love to play CDs in the car, but when I'm home, I just dial it up on YouTube.
This is true.
That's great.
We'll do it. Yes. And will you be doing some live dates in LA for this release as well?
Yeah, we've got one coming up February 17th, a record release show, well in advance of the album, so we won't have copies of it or anything. But it was a show that, it's harder and harder to get shows these days in Los Angeles because so many venues have gone the way of the dodo. There's very few places to play anymore in Los Angeles that we'd want to play. So this opportunity came up, so we'll do it. And everybody's really busy with the rest of the other 3 guys are busy with their own bands and projects and stuff, so we've got a show that we're rehearsing for now on the 17th.
Yes, well, this is going to be very exciting. And then with this release and that date, will you be looking to start writing for your next album, or have you started already?
Yeah, well, there are 2 records after Varied Superstitions that are done. There are 2 more that I've finished already, The Fuzzy End of the Lollipop, and then another one called Problems. It's an 8-song, like a mini LP 8-song thing that I just finished with Andy Creighton. So I've got, trying to space those out so that we don't, we're not victims of, like, I think the year of the Brilliant Failures, we put out 2 records that year, and I think we put out 2 more the next year, and I think we're flooding the small market.
You're like the Prince of indie pop, really, aren't you?
If you're going to dub me that, David, go right ahead if you've got the power. Who gave you the authority to call me a prince?
No, Prince, the musician.
I thought, okay. Yeah, I guess I can't say, I got a manic energy, it seems. I don't know.
Well, he would just bring out, we got a quadruple album, a double, a triple. It was like, wow, go
yeah,
Prince.
The For All the World was a double record, the one that came out last year.
Yeah, so it's kind of just interesting how sort of prolific you can be when you've got your head in the right space.
Just go ahead and call me cracked, why don't you? Fine.
No, it's good. I think, do you find it's very emotionally necessary? Do you sort of feel like this is the one thing that keeps you sort of ticking over and sane in this kind of rather peculiar world?
Who said I was sane, David? I've already alluded to the fact that I think I'm quite mad. And I mean, sensibly so, I suppose, oxymoronically. Yes. So I don't know. Again, no one stopped me, and I just try to react against the what I did yesterday, as it were, yesterday. I'm bursting with ideas, and they're all just between you and me and the wall and all of your listeners. There's always Beatles songs to rip off in some subtle ways.
Well, I guess everyone, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? I did an interview with the guy, the guitarist who was in that band Heart, and I remember sort of thinking,
wow.
And yeah, he plays the electric guitar, so he comes in with Dreamboat Annie and that song "Crazy on You" with this fantastic power chord. And there was one particular track, something about the Archer, and I thought, God, that did sound like a Led Zeppelin track on Led
Oh
Zeppelin
yeah.
4. And he did say, "Yes, it was a little bit like that." And I thought, "Oh, yes, you did." But anyway, I'm sure Elvis Costello was all very, very cool. Well, there was an artist like, was it Olivia somebody who'd sort of, I suppose, had borrowed quite heavily from Pump It Up, I think, was the track. And his kind of friends were like, "Oh my God, you could sue, you could sue." And he said, "Yeah, but I've ripped off loads of people." So
Of
I
course,
think,
yeah.
no, it's like, come on,
Yeah, Paul
don't
McCartney.
let's go that way. Because I think it's a bit tedious when, bands start taking each other, or musicians take each other to court for some rift or some essence. So thankfully that hasn't happened for a very long time.
Yeah, I think early on, Paul McCartney acknowledged that they pinched from everyone. So, I mean, if you want to make it have it take a literary turn once again, T.S. Eliot very, very famously said, uh, bad poets imitate, good poets steal. And I think, if the greatest of them, a la Macca, are copying to the fact that they pinch from other people, so we all steal from other people somehow. It's how you mask it. The Cure has been the sword of Damocles hanging over me. I mean, because I don't, the Beatles can't be that because they're inimitable, other
Yes.
than just very fey, power pop, silly kinds of bands too that are just kind of um, charlatans of sorts. But I think the Cure has been an influence that I've tried so hard to mask, maybe not always successfully, that's okay. But we all, we all have things that we love too much, and if you adhere to that whole Sonic Youth thing about kill your idols, maybe you can escape escape censure over it.
Yes.
But at the same time, you can't deny. I don't deny those influences that I've alluded to here, and just talking to you over the course of an hour of loving XTC and the Beatles and the Cure and the Jazz Butcher as well, because we all, it's incredibly pretentious for people to say, "Oh, we're influenced only by ourselves," or "We don't have any influences." If anybody comes along and tries to fob people off of that kind of thing, I said these have been my influences, and for better or worse, I've tried to disguise them so that
Yes.
to disguise them and and pay slight homage to them as well. So
Do the lyrics come first? Is it the
no,
words?
no, the music comes first.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
you
I
get
think it's a rare. They used to ask Dylan about that all the time, whom I love and resent at the same time, because I don't think he deserved the Nobel, because I don't consider lyrics poetry. Poetry is poetry. Lyrics are lyrics. But they used to ask him, and he said, I think he was the kind of guy that did perhaps write lyrics first, but it's the rare person that writes lyrics, and then because the words have to fit the melody. So I write the lyrics after I come up with melodies, or sometimes they come in tandem. But it's
yes.
rare. But it's rare. It's usually the melody that comes along, and then I think, okay, I've got to fit the to do a bit of tone painting to try to fit the lyrics, to try to, like, or Jolly Melancholy or the Phase, those two shoegazy songs that you alluded to. I thought, okay, I've come up with a melody. I've got a title in mind now. I'll fill in the various motifs that come under the umbrella of those two things.
Right. My God. So does that take quite a bit of time to sort of then?
Sometimes not, mostly not. As Keats said, I'm being so pretentious quoting all these people. As my
Yes.
good old friend Coleridge said, as Keats said, poetry, if it doesn't come easily as leaves to a tree, then it shouldn't come at all. So I think, I don't write down the melodies or anything. I just think if I remember them, then they're memorable. And if I don't, on to the next thing. So I've written many more songs than we've released, of course. Not too many, actually, because most of the stuff that I write gets recorded. But there's, if I find that if I don't remember it from the night before, then perhaps it's time to go on to something else. So I try to make, that's how I chase after, the catchiest songs I can write.
Yes, because I remember sort of seeing, was it Ozzy Osbourne sort of in the studio, and they were playing. I can't remember what the song was, but he was kind of just making up words, doing and making up a noise almost to sort of go with it, and then started fitting the words and lyrics in, slowly but surely, and then having to work on it. Do you do something quite similar then when you've got your melody and then you start sort of humming
Yeah.
away, thinking what word or what sentence or what idea could fit into that little piece?
They're very closely related. They usually come hard upon one and the other. Once I get the melody, I get excited enough to try to, um, let the unconscious do its conscious thing. So that usually they come together, rather quickly, and then I go on to the next one.
God, that's amazing.
But we're
Well, yeah.
encroaching on this topic of me saying I like these things to remain a mystery. So if I sound clumsy when I try to explain it, it's in part because I don't really know where it comes from or how it operates. And I think that that's a beautiful thing to
Yes.
have it still be in a mist or a mystery.
Yes. Do you ever sort of do any like cut-ups like Mr. Bowie, or do you just kind of, or have you got a lyrical mind that can just conjure up lovely imagery?
Well, because I read so much, David. I read so much poetry, to this day, that and write it as well separately to the lyrics. Um, that I think it's just of a piece kind of they sort of just uh, they sort of just, I don't know, bubble up together.
Yes. Are you pleased or prouder of your lyrics than your poetry?
I have actually, I did put out a chapbook of poems just this last year, on this thing called Bottle Cap Press, a little chapbook of poems that are mostly about growing up in Santa Barbara and being a recovering Anglophile. It's
Mm.
called Something Written, Something Thought, that came out last year, but I didn't attach too much, import to it. It was something, this little tiny press offered to do a chapbook of my poems. I published them, here and there in various little reviews, but I don't do it so assiduously as people who are really serious poets seem to have to do, and keep up with the market and keep having this, rotation of submitting things, constantly to things. Just everyone's, by happenstance, I've published poems, but there's a collection that's out now.
Yes. Well, this is very good, and just curious, do you have to use the two-hand backhand in tennis?
Yes, yeah, I do. I prefer it. I don't understand a one-hand backhand, but yeah, that's how I was taught. You get more power that way. I think it's a more beautiful stroke. Everybody goes like, "Oh, look at Stan Wawrinka's gorgeous one-hand backhand, or Federer's, or whatever." Like, I don't like it. I'm a two-hand backhand guy. Absolutely, both hands on the racket, mate.
I always felt very like a failure that I had to use two hands, and
No,
y-
not at all. No, they teach all the kids to use two hands now. More power from your other wing.
right, right,
Yeah,
okay. I think in
two handers
in the
forever.
70s, I think it was just looked upon as like, oh, you never quite managed it, and then obviously
Or
Beyond Ball came along.
girly thing, because like Chris Everett, a lot of them used the two hand backhand.
Yes,
Yes.
well, I know it's important. So you didn't. So McEnroe, Connors, you're still. They're
No, I'm
both.
not gonna. I'm not gonna help you there. I don't want to be in trouble with either one of them.
Yes, well, it was just interesting. It was a bit like Sebastian Coe and Steve Ovett. It was like it told you so much about people who liked which one.
Well, and moreover, tennis is a sport where people often play like their personalities. I think now that you push me a touch, I think at the time I love McEnroe now because he's this eminence grise of the sport. But at the time he was so bratty that it was hard to root for him, constantly losing his mind with the umpires and having this brash New York kind of attitude or whatever. Notwithstanding the fact that Connors was very feisty as well. But now you think of it, I liked Borg a lot more than either of those two guys, just because he was just such the ice. Just like in the same way that I love Elena Rybakina now in the women's side who just seems unflappable. I like that calm approach because that's something I admire, and I don't think that I pull it off myself. I think I'm a little more McEnroe-ish sometimes when things are going awry on the court.
Yes, well, it's good. Anyway, well, look, that's good. Well, look, thank you ever so much for your time. This has been amazing, and I will put it up very soon. This interview chat.
Thank you, David. That'll please me. That'll please Og, the publicist, and
yes, it will. He's been very good.
But really looking forward to. I remember very fondly the chat we had last time. Please keep in touch.
I will, and have a lovely day, and keep on with the tennis. We'll look forward to
keep on with the jogging.
I will.
One day, let's hope. What town do you live in, actually?
Norwich.
You live in Norwich in the township.
Norfolk, yeah. So just up.
Well, one day I hope to come and have a pint with you and
yes, well, you'd love
send you off to your 5K.
There's a lot of church. I think there's some. Did they say there was a? No, it can't be a church for every day of the week. Every day, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of churches.
Possibly.
Everywhere you walk, you stumble into a church. So. There's so much history in this country. Anyway, look, I'll let you rock. But thank you again.
Thank you, David. Cheers.
Take care. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was me in conversation with John Andrew Fredrick from the Black Watch. I'll put a link in the notes below how you can get the album. This has been the C86 Show. David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can on any of the social media platform sites. Just do C86 Show. All these interviews have been archived on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. Have a great week. Stay safe.